When used properly, your Vermeer brush chipper will give you many hours of productive service. It is equipped with useful safety features to help protect you from serious injury. But safe work practices are also a necessary part of accident prevention. If not used properly, a brush chipper is capable of grabbing you and pulling you into the machine and into the cutting knives. Death or serious injury will be the result. You must exercise caution and use good judgment. Your safety depends on it. This video will present selected operating procedures for Vermeer brush chippers. But this video is not a substitute for a thorough and complete reading and understanding of the operator's manual and its safety instructions. Before operating the machine, always read the operator's manual, know its content, and follow its instructions. Allow only responsible, properly trained people to operate the brush chipper. Carefully supervise any inexperienced operators. Advise anyone who will operate it to read the operator's manual carefully and watch this video. As you prepare the brush chipper for transporting to your cutting site, there are several important safety precautions to keep in mind. Refer to your operator's manual for instructions specific to your brush chipper. Use the right size towing vehicle. Attach the brush chipper securely to the towing vehicle. Connect safety chains to the towing vehicle. Connect the unit's brake systems. Attach the electrical connector. Raise the jack and secure it in place. Test the highway lights. Secure the discharge chute in its transport position. Check that the feed table is raised and locked in the upright position. If your unit has brakes, make sure they are working properly. If you'll be working along the side of the road, use the necessary traffic diversion methods to redirect motor vehicles and pedestrian traffic. Follow your local highway codes and regulations. When you're set up alongside a road, feed all material into the brush chipper from the curb side of the unit. This will allow you to stay away from traffic. Never set up a chipper directly beneath the tree that your crew is pruning or removing. Provide enough room around the chipper for the operator to maneuver while feeding brush. Clear away any brush or obstacles that might interfere or cause the operator to trip or stumble while feeding brush. Examine your brush pile periodically while you chip to make sure none of your material contains stones, wire, nails, or other metal objects, which may damage cutting knives or become dangerous projectiles. The discharge chute is equipped with a stop to prevent the discharging of material over the feed table area. Material leaving the chute can cause injury or blindness. Never discharge the chips where there might be bystanders or co-workers. Rotate the discharge chute to the direction you want to deposit the chipped material. Lock the chute in position using the locking handle. Fold down your feed table. Its design is essential to safe brush feeding procedures. This machine must never be operated with the feed table removed or modified. To prepare for brush feeding, all operators must use proper personal protective equipment. These include a hard hat, hearing protection, either earplugs or an earmuff type protector, eye protection. This may consist of wraparound safety glasses or safety goggles or safety glasses with a full face shield. Safety shoes. Some conditions may also require reflective clothing. If you wear gloves, gloves with wide flared cuffs must not be worn. They are more likely to be snagged by a branch and possibly pull you towards the infeed mechanism or the cutting knives. Gloves must have long, snug-fitting cuffs to reduce the chance of being snagged by a branch. Before you start the engine, Make sure that all personnel are clear of the machine, that the clutch is disengaged, and that the feed control bar is in neutral. Start up the engine following the instructions in the operator's manual for your particular machine. Allow the engine to idle for a minute or two to warm up. Follow the instructions in your operator's manual for engaging the chipping mechanism and increasing the engine speed to operating levels. Check the feed control system to make sure it's working properly. Move the feed control bar for forward feeding. To the stop position, to reverse, and back again to neutral. Make sure the feed control bar allows you to quickly stop the rollers or back out any jammed material. If you're ready to begin feeding brush, place the feed control bar into forward. Vermeer brush chippers are equipped with feed roller speed control. You can adjust the feed roller speed for slower or faster feeding, depending on the type of material you're working with. Vermeer chippers are designed to help keep you away from the feed mechanism and cutting knives by providing a long feed chute and feed table. All Vermeer chippers have fold-down feed tables with sloped sides. This design allows you to feed brush from the side. When feeding brush this way, the sides of the feed table help protect you from being pulled into the machine by providing a barrier between you and the in-feed mechanism. But it is also essential that you do your part by following important safety precautions while operating the machine. Make it a practice to always feed from the side rather than directly behind the machine. Once the limb touches the feeding mechanism, release the limb and move away to the side. Let the feed mechanism pull the material into the machine. To inform you and other workers of potential hazards and essential safety precautions, safety signs are placed on the machine. Keep these safety signs in good condition and replace any that are damaged or missing. If your brush chipper has auto feed, this system helps you improve feeding efficiency by allowing you to start the feeding process and then move away. Large limbs with protruding branches may present a hazard unless you handle them correctly. All chippers which are capable of feeding a large limb are also capable of pulling you in with the limb. This risk can be reduced by following some important safety precautions. Always feed material with the base entering the feed mechanism first. If you feed the tip of the limb first, a protruding branch or V-shaped limb can catch you and pull you towards the feed mechanism. By feeding the base first, any protruding branches will tend to slip past you without catching you or your clothing. Sometimes during feeding, a limb will suddenly turn or move sideways and strike you. To reduce the possibility of being struck, release the limb immediately after it begins feeding and then move away to the side. When feeding short material, never climb onto the feed table to hand feed material into the feed mechanism. If you climb onto the feed table for closer access with the machine operating, you're in great danger. You can be killed or lose an arm or leg. If you climb onto the feed table to reach for short branches or twigs, they can feed into the machine before you can let go. Or you might accidentally get too close and touch the feed mechanism. Do not try to kick material. If the feed mechanism or blades catch your foot, you will not be able to pull yourself free. If your machine has a feed control bar, do not depend on it to stop the feed mechanism and prevent you from being pulled into the machine. You may not be able to reach the bar or have time to push the bar to stop the feed mechanism. When feeding short material, always stand to the side of the feed table and use a wood object such as a branch to push the material into the feeding mechanism. If you have problems with material jamming in the in-feed mechanism, your first step should be to use the feed control bar to reverse the material out, reposition it, and feed it again. Trim the material if it continues to present feeding problems. If the discharge chute or chipper housing becomes plugged, you'll need to completely shut the machine down in order to clear the problem. Do not try to remove a plug while the engine is running. Follow the normal shutdown procedure as described in your operator's manual. Place the feed control bar into neutral. Reduce the engine speed to idle. Wait for the engine to slow to idle before disengaging the drive mechanism. Shut off the engine and remove the key. The cutter disc or drum will continue to rotate for some time after the drive mechanism is disengaged. Before opening up the chipper housing, check that the disc or cutter wheel has come to a complete stop. Depending on the chipper, check either the bearings or the drive belts of the cutter mechanism to make certain that rotation has stopped. If quicker access to the cutting mechanism is desired, shutting off the engine from idle while the drive mechanism remains engaged will reduce disc or drum coast down time. Do not open up the chipper housing to check for rotation. Do not restart the disc or drum while the housing is open. You can be struck by thrown objects or be severely cut by the rotating disc or drum. Follow your operator's manual for the proper way to gain access to a plugged discharge chute or chipper housing. Wear gloves when cleaning out the plugged area and use caution when working near the exposed cutter knives. Thoroughly clean the plugged area before closing the housing. If material builds up around the feed mechanism and impairs operation, follow your operator's manual for directions on how to access and clean the in-feed mechanism. Never climb onto the feed table for any reason unless the machine is completely shut down and all components have stopped moving. Chipping knives and the drum or disc should be inspected periodically and maintained according to the instructions provided with your machine. Vermeer brush chippers will be productive for you only when the chipping system is properly installed, adjusted, and maintained. Inspection and maintenance are essential. If a machine component is loose, damaged, or out of adjustment, and you continue to use the machine, a cutting component may break loose and become a dangerous projectile. Not only will this cause extensive damage to the machine, but may cause death or serious personal injury. Following safe working practices when feeding brush into a brush chipper is absolutely essential. Use good judgment when operating your Vermeer brush chipper. Respect the potential dangers and the fatal consequences of improper operation.